going back. You always musical growing up, Cam?
Yeah.
Yeah, the perception from the wider community would be that music is part of the Aboriginal life. Is that true in your experience? Was music surrounding you growing up and your family in the wider community?
Yeah, I mean, music, Aboriginal culture is a song and dance culture, you know.
Yeah.
We pass on our wisdom and knowledge, our understanding of our place in the universe through song and dance.
Yeah.
You know, so the idea that people, when we started, you know, going off into my musical career later in life, that people would say to me, you know, oh, rap music or yada yada, you know, they just totally denied the idea that it's in my DNA to tell stories through song.
Yes.
You know,
It's
so
funny.
the
It's
idea
amazing
that,
how people manage to miss that sometimes. Isn't
yeah, I grew up around it. You know, I mean, you know, my grandmother would say, "Come out here, look," and look across the road and have. There's a each family tends to be the keepers of certain arts.
Yep.
You know, there'd be a dance family, and they would be teachers of that. So people would be taken to them. You know, a song family. You know, a family that might have a string of medicine men or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother would say, "Come out here, look," and I'd walk out and she'd say, "Look at them boys over there dancing." And it'd be the dance family, you know, over there doing traditional dancing in the backyard, you know. Yeah, it was. Those are the things that got me a natural thing. It was always in my DNA, you know, music. So I wasn't surprised. I mean, it was just always who I was.
I know the boarding houses in St. Peters were all constantly had music blaring.
Yeah. Oh, you know, once you went off onto, you know, from seeing traditional dance in the backyard to kind of going to boarding school and having Red Hot Chili Peppers and Lenny Kravitz, you know, CDs and, you know, going to a Lenny Kravitz concert when was just mind-blowing to me.
Lenny Kravitz concerts have a tendency to be pretty mind-blowing, don't they?
Yeah, he still had his big long dreads then, so.
Yeah.
But, no, by the time I got to St. Peters, it was like when they asked me, do I know my traditional ways? And I said no, because, you know, it was a ridiculous question. Mm-hmm. So at the time, I didn't think myself as being musical. It was just who I was, you know. And I played in bands in St. Peters and in front of chapel, and we'd throw nights at St. Peters where we'd charge $1 to get in. And we'd make 15, 20, $30 each at the end, which was a lot of money to a boarding school, you know. I mean, $1, $5 is you're rich. Yeah. You know, so, yeah, St. Peter's allowed me to kind of hang around other musical people as well, guitarists and singers, and it was just fun at point stage, you know. I was still trying to work out what do I cook for this clean slate, this clean plate that I now have, you know. Mm-hmm. So music was just a part and parcel of keeping me popular maybe at that point in time.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
If I was popular, I was able to not explain too much because I didn't really know what to explain at that point in time about myself, because...
It's very easy if you have a facade for other people to relate to, isn't it?
Yeah. So when I look back, there was a bit of a mask in the sense of I winged the whole thing, you know. I turned up in a city and tempered to master it, you know, better than the city kids, because I knew that's what I had to do to survive. Because I wanted to stay here. I didn't want to go back to the bush. There was nothing back there, you know, apart from cattle work back then. And so that whole time period was, you know, quite a balancing act.
You left school early 90s. The transition into life out of school was full of ups and downs. We'll talk more about that. But you remember having this idea for the Native Rhyme Syndicate in your mind? You knew what you were going to do with your music at that stage?
I don't know, I knew that I was never a backseat guy.
Yep. Always going to be a front man?
Yeah, I was always going to be a front seat guy. I was in the silly R&B group, actually, in '93, after St. Peters, with Jason Connolly, Jason Rogers, a.k.a. J-Boy, who was in the original Native Rhyme, kind of original Native Rhyme. And I remember jamming at Red Hill. We were singing all the old, like, Shy songs and Bella Bib DeVoe and stuff, and we would jam. And one day I did the rap section, and J-Boy stopped me and said, hey, look, can you just sing this backing bit here and lead the rapping, because you can't really rap? And I remember thinking, damn it, that sucks. I want to be a rapper. But, yeah, so Kind of forgot the question there, but
Well, we were talking about the formation in your own mind of this native rhyme syndicate. What was the idea? What were you hoping to achieve?
the whole native rhyme concept is the underdog, you know.
Yeah.
People that, you know, the untouchables, you know, the people that you don't, you know, that have this disease of perception, you know. So when I left St. Peter's and I started finding myself getting caught up in black rallies, and you know, there was this movement in Brisbane, you know, and
Because it was pretty torrid times in Brisbane here
Yeah.
for the Indigenous community in the early 90s.
it was crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
you literally couldn't leave the house because you knew that it was a very high possibility that you were going to be roughed up by the cops, or you were going to be just stopped and searched constantly for drugs. It was like a Queensland police policy at the time, I presume, because it was just so blatant.
Yeah, it happened all the time, every day.
Yeah, every single day, and it just evolved, having this idea of native rhyme, you know, native rhyme syndicate back then, and then the Daniel Yock incident, Daniel Yock murder.
Friend of yours?
Yeah, you know, he was with the dance trip, you know, Waka Waka and stuff back then, and that whole crowd anyway. And I didn't really get to know him really well, but he was part of that crowd, you know. And these were the fellows that started giving me avenues to maybe become proactive in something. So native rhyme just, you know, came out of that time period, with the frustrations of young black people, you know. We go to meetings, community forums, and you'd have, you know, elders that would be speaking for us, not even speaking, you know, and speaking to us rather than asking what was really going on, you know, how do we feel about things, what do we need to assist us. And people were just making decisions for us, you know, and native rhyme was born out of that. It was born out of the disengaged, you know, disassociated, you know, feel we were being oppressed by our own people because we weren't being acknowledged. And yet they had the audacity to say, you know, there's a gap between elders and young people now. Well, maybe because you're the one that's burning the bridges, you know. Young people are forgiving. They want their culture, you know. They any young people, whatever colour you're from, you know, nationality you're from, they do want things to do with, you know, their uncles and aunties and grandparents and, you know, the generations before them. But they're less likely to open those doors of communication if it just seems like they're going to be denied at every chance, you know. So native rhyme got started. Native rhyme syndicate got started because we made the decision that if they're not going to listen to us and not give us our time to speak, we're going to take it, and we don't care who is in our way. We'll roll over you.
Rap hip hop being the obvious vehicle for you, and success came pretty quickly. I mean, Triple J jumped all over you guys straight away, didn't they?
Yeah, I think because Australia was evolving at that point in time. The Australian music industry was starting to really get their hands on a lot of international music.
Yep.
Hip hop had started to come of age. So hip hop was, you know, something that was precise. It's poetry, you know. It's a very precise form of speaking and writing. You don't beat around the bush like you do with rock music. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's no double entendres.
No,
Everything else, you just say what you mean and mean what you say.
It's on point, and you either say what you mean or you don't.
Yeah.
You say it half-heartedly or you don't at all, you know, or you say it full.
I was going to say, you say it full on, or the audience will tell you to get the hell out.
Yeah, you know, and because it's a very personal form of expression too, that, yeah, you're right. If you go on stage and you aren't what you say you are, they'll find that out quite quickly and eat you alive.
Yep.
You know, so it was a marriage made in heaven. You know, having the talent to be able to then move into that style of music was very easy. At the time period, the politics in Brisbane, everything was aligned, and this group was born. That was that. You know, I don't know how to explain it. You know, this group was born that changed everything. You know, for myself and for a lot of people around me. And, you know, it gave nobody was playing hip hop. You know, clubs weren't playing hip hop really, and this group kind of bought a live act They belong to the people. Native rhyme belonged to the people. It was the people. You know, it will always be the people, which is why it would never be defeated in my mind. You know, the things that followed were just obstacles, you know, just moments in time that would come and go, you know. But native rhyme was an ideology. It was something, you know, a great, there's an old quote, nothing can stop an idea when its time has come.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's what native rhyme was.
Seems like, talking to you as well, that the music industry, the recording industry, was only too happy to embrace you guys as well. And there's many tales over many hundreds of years of sort of cultural and arts related businesses where the artistic side of it can get a bit subverted or a bit complicated or a bit distracted. It's been an interesting ride for many of the people that you've come in contact with. Members of Native Rhyme Syndicate have come and gone, have, I guess, self-combusted on the road. It's not an easy life out there, particularly when the money and the adulation starts to roll in.
Yeah, it's
Because we're talking you're playing big day outs, 50,000 people.
Yeah. It happened, and when it happens like that.
And it happened really fast for you guys, didn't
You
it?
might be, you know, the greatest acts on the planet, you know. Overnight wonders,
Yeah.
15 years in the making.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kings of Leon,
Yeah.
perfect example, you know. Look, my position has always been, when people say, you know, I hate this mentality of a lot of Aboriginal people that is, you know, white man this, white man that, yeah, you know. It's always been my position that life will give you whatever you want if you ask for it. You know, the music industry gave us whatever we wanted, you know, and we asked for it. We wanted it, you know, we were hungry.
It's the old saying, careful what you ask for because you just might get it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you get to that stage where, you know, I found a bit that you go out to places and total strangers would be staring at you and you didn't know why when that started happening, you know, and I would approach people and say, what's your problem? And they'd say, hey, no, man, like, you're that guy from Native Rhyme, like, you know, we heard you on Triple J this morning or something, you know. Then I realised that things had changed, you know, and I had to be very careful on how I was interacting with this new energy that was happening, you know, these different winds of change.
And being on that cutting edge at that point, which goes back 100 years of popular music. You were telling me about a story about, you know, going from these massive crowds who love you guys to taking your music to the country here in Queensland. And all of a sudden, you're like Elvis in the 50s being told you're bringing the devil's music into the children and you're going to break down our society and everything else.
We were delivering the devil's work. Yeah. That's what we were being labelled as.
Yeah.
Black media were, you know, weren't being very kind. Yeah. Being on stage at places, you would hear bottles, you know, flying past your head.
Coming out of the light. Yeah.
Coming out of darkness, you know, and you hear someone in the back crowd there screaming, "You're poisoning our young people with this devil's music." And I was like, "Lady, you drinking at a family event is poisoning the people more than what we're doing." Yeah. You know, and that would piss them off more. Yeah. But you know, there were really important key people through those time periods, like, you know, Uncle Ross Watson, you know, who just recently passed away. Yep. He welcomed us into 4AAA, you know, back then, and said, if you want studio to record and it's here, you know, we would come into those places, you know, and when you felt betrayed by your own people like him would put your faith back into things, you know. If we were trying to do good, because there was a lot of violence happening on the streets between different, you know, ethnicities, and Native Rhyme shows was filled with everybody. So it's like people started relying on Native Rhyme performances around the place. And we would perform at youth events and stuff, and like Bindley Civic Centre for Yaka Youth and Community Combined Action Program. Yep. And we would have people of all different nationalities in there enjoying themselves, you know. People started using Native Rhyme events as a place where they can stop fighting with each other and just enjoy themselves, you know. So, you know, the question has gone out of my head again.
We'll talk more about it when we come back. After the break, more about Cam's journey with Native Rhyme Syndicate and life here on the streets of Brisbane. Don't go away.